When Moses knew he could not enter the promised land, he did this instead. Although Moses was a righteous man and a powerful leader, he was not able to lead the Israelites into the promised land. Moses could not go with them, but he left them with these words that guided them after he died. Moses delivered a series of farewell sermons to imprint God's message on the hearts of the children of Israel as they prepared to claim the land God had given them. These sermons covered the history of the wrongs that the people had committed. Moses started by reminding the people of what had happened in the past, amazing events that they should never forget. We should also remember God's works for us and the timeless eternal truths contained in the Bible. Part 1. Pursuing the Journey. Deuteronomy chapter 1 verses 1 to 5. These are the words which Moses spake to all Israel on this side of the Jordan in the wilderness, in the plain opposite Suph, between Paran, Tophel, Laban, Hazeroth, and Dizahab. It is 11 days' journey from Horeb by way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. Now it came to pass in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of the month, that Moses spoke to the children of Israel, according to all that the Lord had given him as commandments to them, after he had killed Sihon king of the Amorites who dwelt in Heshbon, and Og king of Bashan, who dwelt at Ashtaroth in Edrei. On this side of the Jordan in the land of Moab, Moses began to explain this law, saying, as he reflected on the journey in the past, Moses first addressed the key questions of who, what, when, where, and why. Verse 2 mentions that the 40-year journey from Horeb to Kadesh Barnea should have taken only 11 days. This serves as a reminder that sin transforms the life of a believer into a wilderness experience. The old generation had passed away, and the new generation was preparing to enter the promised land. Remember that this new generation was either born during the 40 years of wandering or was very young at the start. Moses recounted 3 incidents for them. Deuteronomy chapter 1 verses 9 to 18. And I spoke to you at that time, saying, I alone am not able to bear you. The Lord your God has multiplied you, and here you are today, as the stars of heaven in multitude. May the Lord God of your fathers make you 1,000 times more than numerous than you are, and bless you as he has promised you. How can I alone bear your problems and your burdens and your complaints? Choose wise, understanding, and knowledgeable men from among your tribes, and I will make them heads over you. And you answered me and said, the thing which you have told us to do is good. So I took the heads of your tribes, wise and knowledgeable men, and made them heads over you, leaders of thousands, leaders of hundreds, leaders of 50s, leaders of 10s, and officers for your tribes. Then I commanded your judges at that time, saying, hear the cases between your brethren, and judge righteously between a man and his brother, or the stranger who is with him. You shall not show partially in judgment. You shall hear the small as well as the great. You shall not be afraid in any man's presence, for the judgment is God's. The case that is too hard for you, bring to me, and I will hear it. And I commanded you at that time all the things which you should do. First, Moses talked about the organization of leadership. This is a principle that states that in order to be more effective and just, an organization should be divided into smaller units. One estimate numbers the children of Israel at 2.5 million or more in those days. Moses knew he could not do the job by himself. Deuteronomy chapter 1 verses 22 to 25. And every one of you came near to me and said, let us send men before us, and let them search out the land for us, and bring back word to us of the way by which we should go up, and of the cities into which we shall come. The plan pleased me well, so I took 12 of your men, 1 man from each tribe. And they departed, and went up into the mountains, and came to the valley of Eshcol and spied it out. And they also took some of the fruit of the land in their hands and brought it down to us. And they brought back word to us, saying, It is a good land which the Lord our God is giving us. Second, Moses reflected on their first foray into the Promised Land 40 years previously. God's perfect will had been for them to enter the Promised Land at the time. All they had to do was enter and accept what God had given them through faith. They decided, however, to send in spies first to investigate the land. The vast majority of these spies saw barriers rather than opportunities. They saw the giants instead of God. This is the difference between faith and fear. Fear sees the circumstances rather than God, whereas faith sees God in the circumstances. Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 39. Moreover, your little ones and your children, who say you will be victims, who today have no knowledge of good and evil, they shall go in there. To them I will give it, and they shall possess it. The older generation feared that if their children obeyed the Lord, they would be killed. Instead, their children were the ones who survived and made it to the Promised Land. Deuteronomy chapter 1, verses 41 to 46. Then you answered and said to me, We have sinned against the Lord. We will go up and fight, just as the Lord our God commanded us. And when every one of you had girded on his weapons of war, you were ready to go up into the mountain. And the Lord said to me, Tell them, Do not go up nor fight, for I am not among you, lest you be defeated before your enemies. So I spoke to you, yet you would not listen, but rebelled against the command of the Lord, and presumptuously went up into the mountain. And the Amorites who dwelt in that mountain came out against you, and chased you as bees do, and drove you back from Seir to Hormah. Then you returned and wept before the Lord. But the Lord would not listen to your voice, nor give ear to you. So you remained in Kadesh many days, according to the days that you spent there. Third, Moses examined Israel's arrogant attitude. They had decided to enter the Promised Land on their own strength. They had not repented. They had only expressed regret. They disregarded Moses' warnings not to do so. Number 2, defeating the nations. Deuteronomy chapter 2, verses 4 to 23. And command the people, saying, You are about to pass through the territory of your brethren, the descendants of Esau who live in Seir, and they will be afraid of you. Therefore watch yourselves carefully. Do not meddle with them, for I will not give you any of their land, no, not so much as one footstep, because I have given Mount Seir to Esau as a possession. You shall buy food from them with money that you may eat, and you shall also buy water from them with money that you may drink. For the Lord your God has blessed you in all the work of your hand. He knows you're trudging through this great wilderness. These 40 years the Lord your God has been with you. You have lacked nothing. And when we passed beyond our brethren, the descendants of Esau who dwell in Seir, away from the road of the plain, away from Elath and Ezion-Geber, we turned and passed by way of the wilderness of Moab. Then the Lord said to me, Do not harass Moab, nor contend with them in battle, for I will not give you any of their land as a possession, because I have given Ar to the descendants of Lot as a possession. The Emim had dwelt there in times past, a people as great and numerous and as tall as the Anakim. They were also regarded as giants like the Anakim, but the Moabites called them Emim. The Horites formerly dwelt in Seir, but the descendants of Esau dispossessed them, and destroyed them from before them, and dwelt in their place, just as Israel did to the land of their possession which the Lord gave them. Now arise, and cross over the valley of the Zered. So we crossed over the valley of the Zered. In the time we took to come from Kadesh Barnea until we crossed over the valley of the Zered was 38 years, until all the generation of the men of war was consumed from the midst of the camp, just as the Lord had sworn to them. For indeed, the hand of the Lord was against them, to destroy them from the midst of the camp until they were consumed. So it was, when all the men of war had finally perished from among the people, that the Lord spoke to me, saying, This day you are to cross over at Ar, the boundary of Moab. And when you come near the people of Ammon, do not harass them or meddle with them, for I will not give you any of the land of the people of Ammon as a possession, because I have given it to the descendants of Lot as a possession. That was also regarded as a land of giants. Giants formerly dwelt there. But the Ammonites called them Zemzumim, a people as great and numerous and tall as the Anakim. But the Lord destroyed them before them, and they dispossessed them and dwelt in their place, just as he had done for the descendants of Esau who dwelt in Seir, when he destroyed the Horites from before them. They dispossessed them and dwelt in their place, even to this day. And the Avim, who dwelt in villages as far as Gaza, the Caphtorim, who came from Caphtor, destroyed them and dwelt in their place. Following that, Moses reminded the people of the nations surrounding the Promised Land with whom they were not to wage war. Through Lot and Esau, those nations were distant cousins. Deuteronomy chapter 2 verse 24 to Deuteronomy chapter 3 verse 11. Rise, take your journey and cross over the river Arnon. Look, I have given into your hand Sihon the Amorite, king of Heshbon and his land. Begin to possess it, and engage him in battle. This day I will begin to put the dread and fear of you upon the nations under the whole heaven, who shall hear the report of you, and shall tremble and be in anguish because of you. And I sent messengers from the wilderness of Kedemoth to Sihon king of Heshbon, with words of peace, saying, Let me pass through your land. I will keep strictly to the road, and I will turn neither to the right nor to the left. You shall sell me food for money that I may eat, and give me water for money that I may drink. Only let me pass through on foot, just as the descendants of Esau who dwell in Seir, and the Moabites who dwell in Ar did for me, until I cross the Jordan to the land which the Lord our God is giving us. But Sihon king of Heshbon would not let us pass through, for the Lord your God hardened his heart, and made his heart obstinate, that he might deliver him into your hand as it is this day. And the Lord said to me, See, I have begun to give Sihon and his land over to you. Begin to possess it, that you may inherit his land. Then Sihon and all his people came out against us to fight at Jahaz. And the Lord our God delivered him over to us. So we defeated him, his sons and all his people. We took all his cities at that time, and we utterly destroyed the men, women, and little ones of every city. We left none remaining. We took only the livestock as plunder for ourselves, with the spoil of the cities which we took. From Aroer, which is on the bank of the river Arnon, and from the city that is in the ravine as far as Gilead, there was not one city too strong for us. The Lord our God delivered all to us. Only you did not go near the land of the people of Ammon, anywhere along the river Jabbok, or to the cities of the mountains, or wherever the Lord our God had forbidden us. Then we turned and went up the road to Bashan, and Og king of Bashan came out against us, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. And the Lord said to me, Do not fear him, for I have delivered him and all his people and his land into your hand. You shall do to him as you did to Sihon king of the Amorites, who dwelt at Heshbon. So the Lord our God also delivered into our hands Og king of Bashan, with all his people, and we attacked him until he had no survivors remaining. And we took all his cities at that time. There was not a city which we did not take from them. 60 cities, all the region of Argob, the kingdom of Og and Bashan. All these cities were fortified with high walls, gates, and bars, besides a great many rural towns. And we utterly destroyed them, even as we did to Sihon king of Heshbon, utterly destroying the men, women, and children of every city. But all the livestock and the spoil of the cities we took as booty for ourselves. And at that time we took the land from the hand of the 2 kings of the Amorites who were on this side of the Jordan, from the river Arnon to Mount Hermon. The Sidonians call Hermon Sirion, and the Amorites call it Shinir. All the cities of the plain, all Gilead, and all Bashan, as far as Selka and Edrei, cities of the kingdom of Og in Bashan. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of the giants. Indeed, his bedstead was an iron bedstead. Is it not in Rabbath of the people of Ammon? 9 cubits is its length, and 4 cubits its width, according to the standard cubit. Then comes the account of the nations that were first destroyed in order to take the promised land. The first to fall were the Amorites, led by Sihon. Following that, Og the king of Bashan launched an attack on Israel. Og was a colossus, but he wasn't too large for God. The point of this section is that God had specific instructions for the nations. Israel's role was to trust and obey the Lord. Part 3. Preparing the entrance. In chapter 3, we are reminded of how the lands already conquered on the east bank of the Jordan River were assigned to the tribes of Reuben and Gad, as well as the half-tribe of Manasseh. They still had to fight alongside their brothers, the other tribes, until all of the land was taken. Moses confirmed Joshua as his replacement and explained his desire to enter the promised land as well as the reasons he was unable to do so. Because Moses had disobeyed God by striking the rock in his rage, God had said he would not be allowed to enter the land. Moses was permitted to ascend Mount Pisgah and gaze into the promised land. Numbers chapter 20, verses 7 to 12. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Take the rod. You and your brother Aaron gather the congregation together. Speak to the rock before their eyes, and it will yield its water. Thus you shall bring water for them out of the rock, and give drink to the congregation and their animals." So Moses took the rod from before the Lord as he commanded him. And Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock, and he said to them, "Hear now, you rebels. Must we bring water for you out of this rock?" Then Moses lifted his hand and struck the rock twice with his rod, and water came out abundantly, and the congregation and their animals drank. Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not believe me, to hallow me in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them." Moses wanted Joshua to know that he did not need to be afraid because the Lord would fight for him. When Moses died, Joshua would take on enormous responsibilities as the new leader. God knew how much it would help him to have Moses as a cheerleader. "Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their forefathers to give them." Joshua chapter 1, verse 6. Moses exhorted the children of Israel to look back and see God's faithfulness in the past. Why was it necessary for Moses to review the past for the sake of the next generation? They needed to remember everything that God had done for them. When God's people forget, they endanger themselves. The Lord did not want Israel to forget all of His blessings, and we must remember everything God has done for us.